All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for this Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event today. And today is a really special day. Today is World Rhino Day, September 22nd. So it's a day when we can learn about the amazing species of rhino that we have in Africa and Asia, but to also learn about the challenges that they are facing and the amazing people who are out in the field and working hard to conserve and protect these beautiful species. So we have a great day in store for you today of live events. Our first event took us to South Africa, where we met Nico from Rhino 911 and learned about how he's using helicopters to help with rhino conservation. In a moment, we're going to meet CeCe and Inoff. And then later today, we're going to go live to the Toronto Zoo. We're going to learn all about the greater one-horned rhino. So lots of great events taking place today. So I did mention that we are going to meet CeCe and Inoff. So we're going to learn a little bit about two unique rhino species that some of you may not know too much about. I think sometimes when we think of rhinos, we think about Africa, but there are two beautiful species, the Sumatran and the Javan rhinos, and they are in trouble. Their numbers are very low. So we have CeCe Sieffert joining us. She's a conservation biologist and Chief Conservation Director at the International Rhino Foundation. So there she focuses on the field programs and the partners they work with. And she has 20 years of conservation and corporate experience. And we're also going to meet Inoff Sectionoff. He is the International Rhino Foundation, the Indonesian program manager. He's worked with the Javan rhino since 1999. And we have to give a big thanks to him for staying up a little bit late for us. He's joining us from West Java today. So I'm going to bring them both in for a big hi. Here's CeCe. Here's Inoff. How are we doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us, Joe.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's great to have you both joining us. Like I mentioned in the intro, the Sumatran rhino and the Javan rhino are such amazing species. And, I think they're sometimes maybe on the back burner when people think about rhino. So I'm so glad to have the two of you joining us today so we can focus on these species for a little bit.
Great. Thanks so much, Joe. As you said earlier, most people think about Africa when they hear the word rhino, but only 2 out of the world's 5 rhino species are in Africa. There are 2 species that live only in Indonesia now, and both of those species have fewer than 80 individuals in the entire population. They are highly endangered, and they are at risk of going extinct. But what we do at the International Rhino Foundation is ensure that those species don't go extinct and that they thrive and grow. Those 2 species live in dense jungles in Indonesia, and we are about to show you a video about rhino protection units, which are our groups of rangers that are out in the field night and day, every day, ensuring that rhinos are safe and protected against poachers. So, Joe, you want to start that first video?
Excellent. I just want to make sure I've got the right one queued up. I think it's the International Rhino Foundation intro.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Here we go.
Great. So I hope you enjoyed that first intro video. It talks about our rhino protection units who are rangers out in the field protecting rhinos 24/7. It's usually groups of 4 men or women that go out in the field, and they have to carry everything they need for the next 2 weeks on their back in a backpack. And they are traveling through hot, steamy jungles in Indonesia to ensure that Sumatran and Javan rhinos stay safe. As you might know, rhinos are currently being threatened by poaching. Poachers want to kill the rhinos to cut off their horns and sell them. But scientists have shown that there is no value in rhino horn. Some people think it's a medicine, but it actually has no medical value, and it's made of the same material as our hair or our fingernails. So rhino protection units are out in the field 24/7 protecting the Sumatran and Javan rhinos. Sumatran rhinos in particular are really incredible species. They are the smallest of the 5 rhino species, and their bodies are covered with hair. They live in the jungle, as I said, and they are very solitary. They don't hang out in groups. Sumatran rhinos are also distributed in many smaller populations across the island of Sumatra, which is one of the largest islands in the country of Indonesia. Because they're spread out, they can't get together to breed and have more babies, and so their population is continuing to go down. So what we're hoping to do is bring those rhinos back together. And the way we're doing that is we're tracking the rhinos out in the forest. We will capture them and bring them into a sanctuary, which is sort of like a zoo, but instead of smaller enclosures like you have at a zoo, the rhinos at the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary each have big jungle enclosures. So they're in their jungle home, and we're bringing them together to breed these animals. So I just want to show you another video about this project called the Sumatran Rhino Rescue. And in this video, you'll hear from some of the people on the ground who are actually caring for the rhinos, including some of the veterinarians and the keepers. And so Joe, if you want to start the SRR video, that'll be up next.
In the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary in Waikambas National Park, we have 7 Sumatran rhino in captivity. I end up here with a big responsibility to saving an animal that's in the brink of extinction.
Sumatran rhino is the smallest rhino compared with the other rhino.
It's the only rhino species that have hair all over the body. Also, they have personalities, so they are clever. Now, the number of Sumatran rhino is considered less than 80 animals. My responsibility is to make sure they are happy, healthy, and then could breed a lot of baby. The calf producing is very low. It's about 4 to 5 years per calf. If the Sumatran rhino died, it's a big loss because the effort to increase the number is very hard.
Because of this population being isolated, they cannot meet each other. This is the most endangering factor. Now our policy is that we have to breed as many babies as possible, and then we also have to restore the habitat. Humans encroach in the forest and use the habitat of the rhino. Rhino Protection Unit consists of 4 people. Their work is to survey the area, dismantle trap if they found, and also help the national park
to stop all the poaching, to stop all the deforestation. We need to work together. We are working very closely with the local people. We have the keepers and then also food collector. They need to collect 60 kilograms per each rhino.
Being caretakers of the Sumatran rhino is actually it's a big challenge. Because all people around the world see what we do.
We feel that all eyes and sometimes all fingers are pointing to us, but we know that we are doing something important for the world. When we saw the baby was born and then moving, and now she's happy and healthy, so that makes us very, very proud of our job here.
This is proof that we can breed the rhino. It's already a glimpse of hope that we can do that. Actually, we know what to do. But what we need is the support. What we did here is just the beginning.
I want to make sure that in the future I still have time to see the rhino. Because not all people can see. Not all can.
I have kids, and I hope their kids will still see Sumatran rhino in the wild.
I hope you all enjoyed that and got a glimpse of the adorable baby rhinos. As the video showed you, the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary has now successfully bred 2 rhino calves, 1 boy and 1 girl, and we're very excited about that. And the veterinarians and the keepers that you saw on the video are doing their best to try and bring some new calves into this world. So keep our fingers crossed for more rhino babies coming soon. Everybody on that video and all of you and all of us, we're all part of Team Rhino. We're a group of people who love rhinos, who want to save rhinos, and who are doing their best in their own way to keep rhinos alive and so that they thrive for future generations. So if you are interested in rhinos, when you go home, you can tell your mom and dad about Team Rhino, and you can go to the Team Rhino website and learn more about Sumatran rhinos. The second rhino species that lives in Indonesia is the Javan rhino, which is a rhino that has 75 individuals in the entire population. So as I told you earlier, the Sumatran rhinos are spread out across lots of different landscapes in different parks. But the Sumatran rhinos are all in one single park on the island of Java in Sumatra. And that's actually the island that Enof lives on. We're going to see this next video, which is actually a camera trap video, which means it's a camera that's put in the forest, and these are videos that are captured by the patrol teams. There's no audio on these, so since Enoch is the Javan rhino expert, we hope that he can tell you about the rhinos while we're watching this next video. So Joe, if you can start the camera trap video, it's going to show brand new footage of 2 rhinos that were born last year.
Japan rhino is a different, the anatomy. The Japan rhino has one horn, and while the Sumatran rhino is 2 horns. This, the baby rhino was born, you can see this 6 December 2020. And this is the rhino calf that we can capture from the camera trap. The estimation, the age of the baby of rhino, not more than 1 month. Still healthy. And then for your information as well, the female of Japan rhino without the horn. Meanwhile, the male one is so with horn. So this is easy to see the difference of the male and the female of Japan rhino.
Great, thanks, Enoch. This second video we have coming up is actually not from a camera trap. It is from some of the rhino protection units. So as I said earlier, both Javan and Sumatran rhinos are very isolated and people do not see them often. But this upcoming video was taken by some of the rhino protection units down in Ujung Kulon National Park, which is the name of the park where all of the Javan rhinos live. And they saw this rhino on the beach. And I'll let Enoch tell the story about that as the video plays.
Yeah, this is during the COVID-19. There is not too many people enter the national park. It is make of the Japan rhino breed to approach along the coast. And then suddenly when we have like a patrol along the coastline, suddenly we can see this Japan rhino utilize this beach near the north of the peninsula of the Ujung Kulon. This is no wonder because the Japan rhino love subtly. They need what you call salt to digest the food that they have been eaten. So this is it's very rare actually that we can get a video of the Japan rhino along the coast, and then we can spend at the time. Actually, in 2020 we have found 2 times. Early in the 2020, and then this is in the middle of the 2020 in April. So yeah, maybe this situation because of the marine patrol can they can make of the clear a beach from the illegal activity, and then the Japan rhino come to the beach, and then we are very enjoy, and then it's quite surprised that I can see the rhino appear in the beach. If you can see this rhino, this is a Japan rhino, it has a horn. This is a male Japan rhino. So at the time we can spend 10 minutes at a time. And then this video we took from the small boat.
Great, thanks, Enoch. Yeah, it's exciting that the marine rhino protection units have done such a great job of keeping the beaches safe and free of illegal activities so that the Javan rhinos can come down to the water to get their salt, which is critical for their diet. So we've just given you a tiny little glimpse of two incredible rhino species, the two most rare rhino species, and we're excited to hear what questions you have, and we are excited to answer those questions for you.
All right. Well, and CeCe, thank you so much for giving us a little peek into the world of the Javan and Sumatran rhinos. I mean, they're so beautiful. That baby Sumatran rhino, the baby Javan rhino. So that is so rare to see, and it's amazing to see you're able to capture some of that footage. And two Sumatran calves born in the wild. That's incredible. So it's great conservation work that the organizations are doing as well.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. So before we go to a little Q&A action, we've been playing Kahoot since the new school year started. And I made a few questions while I was watching some of those videos. And we're going to let the classrooms play along for a minute and see how well they are paying attention, see what they learned about the Sumatran and Javan rhino. So I'm going to pop this banner up right here. So kahoot.it, it'll bring you to a page where it asks you for a PIN number. And I'm going to pop that PIN number up in just a moment. So a couple ways to join. If your class is lucky enough to have one-to-one Chromebooks or tablets, you could join at your desk, or your teacher could join at the front of the room. She could bring it up for you nice and big, he or she, and then you can shout out your answers when the time comes. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's get that shared. And let's get that quiz started. So like I said, a PIN number is about to pop up on the screen. There we go. And then you can join. If everybody has technology, great. Otherwise, maybe one at the front of the room will do just fine, and you can shout out your answers. Or if you can't connect in time, just shout your answers out and see if you were right. So the PIN number is 913-7913. You should be able to see that up on the screen now. I can see, oh, CeCe's quick. She's in already, and I can see Team Rhino. And then we'll give it about 30 seconds to a minute, because lots of students are going to start joining us over the next minute or so. So we'll give a little bit of time for people to get in. While we're doing that, I'll remind everybody how it works. 20 seconds for each question. They're multiple choice. Obviously, you get points for the right answer, but you get even more points if you're quick. So if you answer quickly. However, if you answer fast and it's the wrong answer, well, you got nothing. So we have to think about the question and answer it as quickly as we can. All right, maybe 10 more seconds and I'll start the quiz. I can see the numbers are slowing down, but a few students are trickling in. Okay, here we go. So like I said, 20 seconds. First question's coming up now. All right, how many species of rhino are there? We saw that in the first video. Was it 5? Was it 3 species, 10, or 15? How many species of rhino are there? 5, 3, 10, or 15? All right, the majority went with 5. Good job, everybody. Now that we got a feel for it, let's get ready for the next question. We'll see who's got the leaderboard. Looks like it's Jake. And on to the next question. 2 of 4. Sumatran rhinos live in the, is it the forest, the grasslands, the desert, or the ocean? I think there's one we can get rid of pretty quickly. But was it the forest, the grasslands, the desert, or the ocean? All right, good job out there. That is the forest. Let's see if things shifted. Jake's still holding down the top of the leaderboard. And we'll jump to question number 3. About how many Javan and Sumatran rhinos are left? Was it around 20, around 100, around 50 of each, or was it around 80 of each? 20, 50, 100, or around 80 of each species? All right, good job to those listening in. It is a little fewer than 80 of each. And the fourth question coming up, Jake's still on top. Let's see if things shift. Anything can happen in the final question. Rhino horn is made of a material similar to soft clay, our hair and fingernails, tree bark, or our skin. Which one was it? Clay, hair and fingernails, tree bark, or our skin. Something similar to one of those. All right, good job. Our hair and fingernails. Let's take a look at the final leaderboard here before we move to a little Q&A action. Ryan in third place. Jake shifted down to second. All right, and there is our top one there. Good job, everybody. Thanks for playing along today. Let's come back to the main screen here. All right, perfect. Well, CeCe, enough. I think it's time that we meet some of our classes. So those tuning in via YouTube, you can send in your questions there. In fact, there's one here already. So let's get started with this one. Then we'll start meeting some camera classrooms. So Mr. Douglas's Youth Leadership and Sustainability Group in Peterborough, Ontario is hanging out with us today. And they're wondering, is there enough suitable habitat to sustain a healthy population of Sumatran rhinos, or is rewilding areas an important part as well?
Yeah, Enoch can tell us all about the restoration project that he's part of in Waikambas National Park.
Yeah, thank you, CeCe. Yeah, this Sumatran rhino need a suitable habitat, and then the International Rhino Foundation working closely with the government of Indonesia, and then nowadays we work closely with the local people, try to restore some the habitat in Sumatra in Waikambas National Park to make this suitable habitat for the Sumatran rhino. We have been started with 50 hectare right now, and then we would like to bring back the Sumatran rhino to the location. Yeah, we know that the Sumatran rhino, they need 10% from their total body weight, and then in the Sumatran rhino sanctuary that we have, probably you remember from the video that each Sumatran rhino, they need an additional food plan, at least 60 kilogram or 120 pounds a day. So back to the habitat, yes, we would like to find to reforest the habitat, because the rhino, the Sumatran rhino, need a good habitat for them. And then Sumatran rhino, they are true browser, and they need what you call the secondary forest. And then we have to maintain all the forest for the Sumatran rhino. Any additional information, CeCe?
No, that's great, Enoch. Thank you.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot of food that they have to eat in a day. So you can see why they need a nice, healthy habitat and big spaces to roam across to find that food. Okay, well, let's start meeting a couple camera classrooms. Let's start off with Mr. Lee's group in North Hollywood, California. Let me pop them into the call here. Here they are. Hey, North Hollywood, how we doing? Our third grade explorers.
Doing good. Behind me.
Awesome. Who's got a question for us?
Why do rhinos have horns?
That's a great question.
Good question.
They use their horn for many different things. Sometimes it's for knocking down or pulling down branches so they can eat the leaves off the tree. They're also used sometimes for protection. So if a mother rhino is trying to protect her calf, she will use that horn to keep a lion or some other predator away. And they're also used for scraping mud. I saw one of the questions that came up in the chat was, why do rhinos love putting mud on themselves? And they use mud as a protectant of their skin to keep bugs and even to keep sun off of their skin. And one of the way they make a big mud bath is by scraping up the mud with their horn or with their feet. So it's a tool that's attached to their body.
All right, very cool. Well, let's grab another one of our classrooms. That was a great question to start us off. We've got a group of classrooms joining us from Carroll Stream in Illinois. So I'm going to pick one of them to start off here. Let's go. Here we go. We're going to go to Mrs. Kseniak's group first. Let's start there.
Hi, I'm Tiana. What do hippos, what do they eat?
You know, if you want to take this one?
Well, thank you for the question. Yes, this for the 5 species of rhino that we know, they have a different kind of the type of food that they eat. In African rhino in Africa, they're grazer. They graze of the grazer of the main food of the white rhino, and then black rhino. They almost similar with the Sumatran and Javan rhino. There's a browser. They don't eat the graze. Meanwhile, in greater one-horn rhino in India and Nepal, this is tend to be the grazeland. So if we can conclude that white rhino and then greater one-horn rhino, they eat a graze. Meanwhile, the black rhino, Sumatran and Javan rhino, they the browse. There's a from the tree, a leaf from the tree. I would like Joe, if you allow me, that this is also the question. This is how all the rhino live to that. Based on the literature that we have from the data that we have, at this maximum the record that of 40 years old. This rhino can 40 years old. Even though now in our sanctuary in Sumatra, we have one rhino more than 40 years old, probably 42 years old right now.
Okay, awesome. Well, another great question. And it's interesting to hear about the different ways they eat. So the grazers who feed more kind of off the ground, and the browsers who like to kind of grab it from the trees with their lips. Very, very cool. All right, let's go to another group here. This time we're going to go to Bowmanville, Ontario in Canada. We've got some 6th graders hanging out with us. Let me pop them into the call here. Where are they hiding? There they are. Hey, 6th graders, how we doing?
Good. Riley has a question for you.
What are the 3 other types of rhinos?
Great question, Riley. One of the species lives in India and Nepal, and it's called the greater one-horned rhino. As the name says, it just has one horn. And then there are 2 species of rhinos that live in Africa, the white rhino and the black rhino. So 2 in Africa, 1 in India, Nepal, and 2 in Indonesia.
All right, great question from our grade 6s. There is another class joining us online here. Miss O'Brien's grade 6-7 class, and they're wondering about the size. So maybe the Javan and the Sumatran rhino, this is from Mateo, would like to know their weight. How heavy can they get?
Very big. So the white rhinos are the biggest. The greater one horns are the heaviest. Next is the black rhino. And then the smaller 2 species are the ones in Indonesia. You know, if you know the weights of those 2.
Yeah, for the Japan rhino, the maximum number that we have probably 1 ton, 1,000 kilograms, more or less. Meanwhile, for the Sumatran rhino, the smallest one in Kalimantan that we have, the smallest one is the approximate only 400 kilograms.
Okay.
When you compare with the heaviest in Africa and in the Sumatran rhino, it's the tiniest and then smallest and then biggest compared as Africa and then Sumatra.
Yeah, so they're pretty big if you consider a tiny rhino to only be 350 kilos, which is about 775 pounds. That's a small rhino.
Wow.
More interesting about the Sumatran rhino, we can say that they are woolly rhino. They have a hair. There's only Sumatran rhino have it.
Yep, covered in hair.
Very cool. And so the Sumatran and Javan rhinos are quite a bit smaller than, in some of the ones in India and Africa. Is that to help kind of move through their environments a little better? Because, moving through the forest isn't easy all the time.
That's right.
Probably this is because of evolution, probably. This is because they compare with the African and then greater one-horned rhino. They live in the continent. Meanwhile, this Sumatran and Javan rhino, they live now in the island because of the evolution. Probably you know that Javanese Sumatran rhino used to be, before the ice age, they also utilized the continental of the Asia. And then probably at the time, the size of the Javan rhino and Sumatran rhino is bigger than nowadays, in my opinion.
All right. Well, we're going to head over to Nova Scotia now. We've got a classroom joining us there. I'm going to bring them in now. How are we doing today? There they are.
You have a question?
I have a question. So, why don't the Asian rhinos, why do they not have horns?
Well, they do have horns. They're just smaller than the African rhino's horns. And again, the theory is that because they're weaving through trees in the jungle, their bodies are smaller and their horns are smaller. And rhinos aren't the only species that have a smaller cousin, so to speak, that lives in the jungle. On the island of Borneo in Indonesia, there are pygmy elephants. So they're elephants that look like the Asian elephants on the mainland, but they're just smaller.
All right, very cool. I think I've heard of pygmy hippopotamuses as well.
Right.
Much smaller than their larger African cousins. Very cool. And I mean, it's neat to think about some of those adaptations. The smaller to move through, much smaller horns so they don't get tangled. What about the hair? Is there an adaptation with the hair that the Sumatran ones have?
Well, the Sumatran rhino is the last genus. This actually, the Sumatran rhino is coming from the evolution. This directly from the ancestor of the rhino. So that's why goes to the woolly rhino.
Oh, okay.
Probably this is what you call the primitive rhino. Is still alive. There's like the primitive rhino that's alive in the world right now. So to protect the Sumatran rhino, not protect the species, but as one genus. It's the last genus that still live in the world right now, the global.
All right, amazing. That kind of shines.
They cover the body with the hair.
Yeah, and that just highlights, even more why it's so important to protect this species. Let's see, where should we go now? All right, let's take another classroom here. This time we're going to bring in Mrs. Pi Trentonio's group. I'm going to pop them in there. How are we doing today?
Good. Wait, guys. Good. Hi. Hi. Good.
Hi, everyone.
Go ahead.
Why do rhinos live in different spots?
That's a great question. Rhinos live in different spots because there are different species that have adapted to different landscapes. So rhinos aren't the only species out there that live in different parts of the world and that are different depending on where they live. You can think about all the different cats, all the different wild cats in the world. Some are huge like tigers and lions, some are little like civets, and each one adapts so that it can survive and thrive in its own environment. So the large rhinos in Africa have adapted to, the white rhinos live and eat grass out in open savanna, and the black rhinos live in more shrubby areas and pull leaves off of trees. The greater one-horned rhino in India and Nepal is one heck of a swimmer because of the monsoons that happen, and they live sort of in watery, grassy areas. And then the rhinos that have adapted in Indonesia, as we talked about, are smaller and can move around the forests more easily.
Yeah, and I think that brings up an interesting point. Some of the classes might be learning about adaptations, and they might be learning about competition. So if one species of rhino is feeding, in the grasslands, kind of grazing, and the other is feeding more in kind of wooded areas, then they don't compete with each other as much for resources. Very cool. Okay, where should we? Oh, there we go. Mr. Tucko's group, they are joining us as well. How are we doing, boys and girls?
Hi. My question is, do rhinos eat fish?
Okay, so you mentioned that there was the greater one-horn are good swimmers. I think he was wondering if any species eat fish. Was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great question. No, they are vegetarians, and they get that big just eating plants and grass and leaves. So they don't eat any fish or bugs or little animals. They eat only vegetation.
All right, great question. So I think we still have time for a couple more questions. So I might get classroom or two to give me a wave if you guys have another question, and I'll come back to your groups. There's another question via YouTube wondering about predators. Do the Sumatran or Javan rhinos have any natural predators?
So,
you take this, yeah.
Actually, that for the Sumatran rhino, they live the same area with the Sumatran tiger actually, but rhino, the mother of rhino always what you call, they protect the rhino after the birth, and then we don't have a data that the Sumatran rhino killed by the Sumatran tiger so far. Meanwhile, in Javan rhino, probably in less than 1950, the Javan tiger still alive at that location, but we also never seen the proof that the Javan rhino killed by the Javan tiger. But so far the predator for the Sumatran and Javan rhino, we still have no record about the data. But the threat from like the wild dog and then also Sumatran tiger for the Sumatran rhino, they are the potential as the predator for this rhino, especially during the baby.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of growing to do, and they definitely be susceptible at that age. And I think, that kind of highlights as well how hard it is to study the Javan and Sumatran rhinos. Is they're in an environment that's very hard to navigate and get through and to find them in the first place. So yeah, definitely challenges, I imagine, being a researcher out in the field.
Absolutely.
That is true. That is.
Oh, go ahead.
This is not enough to see the Javan rhino. I started from this 1999 until now. Then I only three times seen directly the Javan rhino.
Wow.
Because below in 2000 until 2010, the population less than 50 at the time. Now it's growing.
All right. Well, that's definitely positive news, and no doubt through conservation efforts like through IRF. So I'm going to maybe grab two more questions. We'll go to Mrs. Kosiniak's group because I see someone waiting nice and patiently to ask a question.
Hi, my name is Bella. I have two questions actually. Why do some rhinos have one horn and some have two? And the other one is I forgot.
That's okay. Just stick with your one question.
Okay.
One horn or two. Why?
All right, Enoch, you want to take this one?
Yes, thank you. That's good question. Actually, the three species, they have a two horn. White rhino, black rhino, and then Sumatran rhino. They have a two horn. Meanwhile, the greater one horn rhino, the Javan rhino, they are the same family. They have one horn. Yeah, this is from the information that this is because probably this is, in my opinion, they try to adapt the location, how to adapt the location. That's why they have a one horn and two horn. This is one of the good story about the one horn rhino. Probably you remember the story about the unicorn, the unicorn, the horse with the one horn. Actually, this is coming from the greater one horn rhino. When the Marco Polo tried to explore the globe at the time, when they stopped in India, he showed that the greater one horn rhino with horn, and then he said this is unicorn, the real unicorn. That's why the scientific name of the greater one horn rhino is Rhinoceros unicornis. This is probably dedicated from the unicorn. CeCe, probably you have the additional information.
Well, of course, that was a myth, but there were some interesting stories told about different rhino species as explorers were traveling the globe and learning about new species. So it's not a unicorn, but it certainly did tell a good story hundreds of years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Well, let's maybe squeeze one more question and give me a wave if your class has one more. We can't get to everybody, but maybe we can squeeze one more in. All right, Mrs. Antonio's crew.
Go ahead.
Why do rhinos have hairs?
Well, all mammals have hair. That's one of the definitions of being a mammal. Some mammals are super hairy, like an orangutan or a capybara, and some do not have a lot of hair. It's just little hair, like on our arms, we have just a little bit of hair. But all mammals have hair, and as we've been talking about, it's one of the adaptations that the animal has undergone so that it can succeed as best it can in the environment that it lives in. So it is one hypothesis that the rhinos in Indonesia, particularly the Sumatran rhino that has lots of hair, possibly has all that hair to keep insects or leeches or bugs off of its skin, or possibly also to act like a shade for sunscreen because of because those islands are near the equator and it is very sunny there. But we're not totally sure why Sumatran rhinos have much more hair than their rhino cousins in Africa. But it's an adaptation, and if you're really interested in it, you can maybe study rhinos one day, and then we'll learn from you why Sumatran rhinos are hairy.
All right, excellent. Good challenge. And you're right, there's so much that we have left to discover about animal species all over the world. So being a wildlife biologist would probably be a pretty rewarding and fun career that could take you all kinds of places. I lied. Let's do one more question. I see someone waiting patiently at Mr. Lee's group. So we'll squeeze one more in from our third grade explorers.
Do people put radio collars on rhinos to track them?
Yes, they do. There's different ways that scientists can track rhinos. Because each of the 5 species have a slightly different shaped body, there are different ways that those radio collars are attached. So some can have sort of like a collar, like a dog around its neck. Some scientists try to put a collar around their ankle. There's even some that they're like little tags that go into the rhino's ear. And we even have partners in Southern Africa who are studying a new type of tracker, which is drilled into the rhino's horn. It doesn't hurt the rhino because, like I said, it's like fingernails. It doesn't hurt when our fingernails are cut. But the tracker is actually drilled into the horn. So researchers are actually comparing the different kinds of ways to track rhinos to see what's the most effective and safe way to know where rhinos are at all times.
All right, great question. So as we're wrapping up today, I want to pop the website up here. Students can explore a little bit more afterwards, learn a little bit more about some of the programs and the rhinos species. I want to give a big shout out to all of the groups who joined us via YouTube. Thank you for sending in such great questions. Obviously for playing along with the Kahoot as well. A shout out to our camera classrooms joining us from different locations. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for those great questions. I'm going to bring you up on the screen in just a moment for a big goodbye. But CeCe and thank you so much for being with us today. Thanks for taking us into the world of the Sumatran and Javan rhinos. And it is scary to hear that there's fewer than 80 individuals, but it's exciting to hear that things are trending maybe a little bit in the other direction, with some being born, like the 2 Sumatran rhinos, the Javan rhino numbers increasing. So it is exciting to see that kind of progress. I know it isn't easy.
It's not easy, but thanks everybody for joining, and happy World Rhino Day to all of Team Rhino.
All right, let's hop in some classrooms here. If you want to do a big goodbye and thank you as we're signing off for now. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us today. And stick around for 1 o'clock Eastern if you can. Join us via YouTube. We're heading to the Toronto Zoo. We'll learn a little bit more about the greater one-horned rhino. So thanks everyone.
Bye.
Have a great rest of your day. See ya.